A quiet day began like any other. The young man sat in solitude, lost in his thoughts. A sudden piece of news shattered the silence. After 5 years of absence, the only update about his brother was a death notice. Years ago, their mother had dedicated her remaining time to searching for the missing son, knowing the secret of his illness. Eventually, the mother also passed away, leaving the protagonist to face his grief alone. The protagonist stood in a heavy silence. After 5 years of searching, the first news he received about his brother was an obituary. He sifted through the remnants of a life lost. A missing persons flyer served as a painful reminder of the void left behind. The young man had once been filled with hope. He had tried to hold on to the image of the sibling he desperately wanted to find. Driven by grief and a need to escape, the protagonist volunteered for a mission in Africa. He believed he would never have a reason to return to Korea. Now back home, he opened a box containing the few things his brother had left behind. These were the only treasures the missing man had clung to until the end. The protagonist examined the few items his brother had clung to in his final moments. The young man felt a wave of confusion. The contents of the box seemed completely out of place for his sibling's life. Among the strange artifacts, a familiar object caught his eye. The protagonist recognized the pocket watch immediately. He had given it as a good luck charm for a college entrance exam years ago. He traced the engraving on the back, recalling a memory from a simpler time. The protagonist remembered the gift he had given his brother to wish him luck on his college entrance exams. The younger brother had been thrilled, realizing he actually needed a watch. The older sibling took pride in his thoughtfulness, boasting that the piece was far more stylish than any digital alternative. However, the mood shifted when the young man noticed a glaring mistake in the inscription of his own name. Frustrated by the misspelling, the older brother demanded the watch back to have the error fixed. The protagonist felt a surge of irritation. He considered demanding a correction from the craftsman, but eventually decided to just live with the mistake. A small laugh escaped the young man. He found a way to justify the misspelling, turning the error into a joke about his own name. Suddenly, the mood shifted. The protagonist noticed the pocket watch was ticking, despite it having been broken for a long time. Confusion turned into shock. The young man stared at the object, unable to explain how it had come back to life. A haunting voice echoed through the silence. It was a message from beyond, revealing a truth that the clock should not have been able to carry. The brother felt a deep sense of guilt. His only goal had been to find a cure for his mother. He believed his return would be swift, but he soon realized he was lost in a place far beyond his reach. Everything changed on a cold October day. A mysterious message arrived, offering a chance to make any wish a reality. The young man would have ignored the strange offer, but the sight of his suffering mother changed his mind. Driven by desperation and a flicker of hope, he decided to take the risk and participate. The brother remembered a place that felt far too vivid to be a dream. It was a harsh reality filled with mythical creatures. At the heart of this strange land stood a legendary tower. Many believed that reaching its peak granted the power of a god. But the young man sought a different prize. His only goal was the legendary elixir capable of curing any illness. He ventured into the unknown, knowing this world was far more dangerous than anything he had ever faced. Time passed in a blur of chaos and conflict. The journey became a fragmented nightmare of war and loss. The brother's journey spiraled into chaos as betrayal fractured his clan. His own body began to fail him, consumed by a devastating addiction. Surrounded by fire and enemies, the young man finally secured the elixir. But he was trapped, unable to send the cure home. These records were his final legacy. He hoped his brother would follow the trail to deliver the medicine to their mother. The protagonist gripped the pocket watch tightly. The weight of the truth felt heavy in his hand. Overwhelmed by grief, the young man sat in silence. He stared at the remnants of a life torn apart by a desperate mission. The pocket watch served as a bridge to a lost past. Heiling held the heirloom tightly, haunted by the words of a brother who had vanished. The message was a plea for help, a hope that the truth would eventually be uncovered. A heavy silence filled the room as the protagonist processed the magnitude of the sacrifice. Suddenly, a strange sensation jolted through him, signaling that something was about to change. Hyling felt a surge of otherworldly energy. He wondered if this was the same power wielded by those within the tower. The young man stood surrounded by ghostly figures, feeling the weight of a legacy he didn't yet understand. A sudden agony gripped him. The process of succession was taking a brutal toll on his physical form. Blood streamed down his face as the transformation reached its peak. The pain was absolute. The transition finally reached its conclusion. The awakening was complete. The awakening was finished, but the result was far from perfect. Hyling was left in a fragile state, with the succession barely begun. Shock washed over the young man as he realized the gravity of his current condition. He stared at the glowing interface in silence, processing the strange reality unfolding before him. New abilities had surfaced, and his nature was finally revealed. However, a specific destination was required to fully register his power. The truth about his brother's fate became clear. A dark realization sparked a burning desire for vengeance. Hyling vowed to avenge his brother. He would master the rules of that world to destroy everyone responsible. The young man examined his status window. Despite the awakening, he felt his current abilities were still insufficient. A cold-blooded nature had surfaced. This trait granted him an unrelenting rationale and immunity to mind control. The power settled deep within his mind, cementing his mental fortitude. Hyling discovered a visual prowess inherited from an ancient dragon. He recalled Yongwoo's contract with the beast and wondered what remained of that power. Hyling discovered a power that stood above the rest. Clairvoyance had granted him a sight that could penetrate any truth. The pocket watch served as a reminder of the legacy he now carried. The young man decided to play along with the situation for the time being. He suspected he was merely being used as a tool to find the elixir before being discarded. Hyling had no intention of following such a predictable path. His reflections were abruptly cut short by the arrival of Sergeant Cha, who questioned his sudden change in behavior. Hyling felt a wave of regret, but he knew there was no turning back. A final apology was all he could offer. The young man severed every tie to his former life. By selling his home and burning his military gear, he erased his old identity. He prepared for the road ahead with cold precision. Only the essential tools of survival and combat remained. Hyling weighed his options carefully. He rejected the lure of black market weaponry, choosing reliability over raw power. As the first round of the game progressed, the protagonist waited for the perfect moment to strike. The system rewarded those who entered the fray late. By trailing behind, a player could accumulate more points and uncover hidden advantages. Hyling waited with calculated patience. The moment for a specific anomaly to manifest had finally arrived. The air shifted as the atmosphere began to warp. A violent surge of energy erupted, tearing through the surroundings. From the chaos, a mysterious gateway emerged, offering a path to the unknown. Hyling vowed to make his presence known. He intended to show his enemies exactly who they had crossed. The time for hesitation had ended. A new chapter began for the young man. He stepped forward, disappearing into the blinding light of the gateway. A system notification confirmed his arrival. Hyling had reached the starting point of the tutorial. The protagonist closed his eyes for a moment, centering himself before the challenge ahead. Hyling stared ahead with a cold intensity. He had finally arrived at the starting point of the tutorial. The scenery matched the descriptions in the journal perfectly. The young man realized he was exactly where Yongwoo had once been. This tower served as a brutal exam for those seeking godhood. Only those who proved their worth during the tutorial could hope to climb higher. A dark memory surfaced of the pain inflicted upon his brother. Hyling vowed to find those responsible and make them pay. His gaze sharpened with a singular, deadly purpose. The hunt had officially begun. Hyling knew the stakes. To enter the tower, the young man had to dominate the tutorial and secure first place. Perfection was the only option. He planned to hunt for hidden pieces to evolve beyond his current imperfect state. A sudden presence interrupted his thoughts. A mysterious entity appeared, welcoming the unexpected guest. Heiling reacted instantly. The protagonist drew his weapon, ready to strike. The creature seemed amused by the hostility. Ibul Kara asked the young man to lower his guard. Ibul Kara introduced himself as the manager and guide of the 0 floor. The entity viewed the encounter as fate and sought a warm welcome. The manager questioned the young man's trust. He warned that while his advice seemed trivial, ignoring it could be a costly mistake. Ibul Kara noted that the protagonist seemed familiar with their nature. The manager attributed the mask to shyness, finding the situation amusing. The guide explained the structure of the tutorial. 7 distinct blocks awaited the player, each containing unique environments and trials to overcome. Performance was everything. Ibul Kara clarified that higher scores would translate into superior rewards in the future. Heiling questioned the time remaining for his task. Ibul Kara granted the young man a month, leaving the distribution of those days entirely to the player's discretion. The manager revealed a harsh reality. A full week had already slipped away, leaving Heiling to decide if he wanted to struggle or simply wait for the next round. The gap between the newcomer and the elite was already immense. Catching up to the top group seemed nearly impossible, though Heiling had already anticipated this disadvantage. Ibul Kara suggested that while parties were the norm for completing blocks, taking the risk alone could lead to a much higher score. The guide's gaze intensified. He knew the allure of a high score often blinded players to the danger of their own arrogance. Ibul Kara explained that the tower recognized true effort. The scoring system would adapt as the players' contributions became more significant. The manager warned that arrogance often led to a swift end. Many players relied solely on their own strength, only to perish in their pride. However, those who survived the trial became legends. Heiling accepted the terms and prepared to begin his ascent immediately. The system announced the start of the first trial. The goal was clear. A newcomer seeking godhood had to prove their worth to climb the tower. The requirements were strict. Heiling had to achieve a high score within a limited time frame to move forward. Heiling moved forward into the darkness, his mind focused on the trial that had just begun. Every step was cautious as the young man navigated the silent corridor. He paused for a moment, sensing the oppressive atmosphere of the unknown path. The system delivered a clear objective. Heiling had to neutralize every threat hidden within the sector. A sudden strike forced the protagonist to react instantly. The danger was far more immediate than he had anticipated. Heiling recalled the warnings from the journal. However, knowing the traps existed was useless without knowing how to trigger them. A sudden attack erupted from the shadows. The silence of the corridor was shattered in an instant. The young man reacted with lightning speed. He barely managed to shield himself from the onslaught. Heiling realized the nature of the threat. Lethal projectiles had been unleashed upon him. The protagonist pressed himself against the wall. He sought to minimize his exposure to the deadly rain of steel. Heiling pressed himself against the cold stone. He had to minimize his exposure to the lethal rain of iron. The attack was relentless. The young man struggled to maintain his footing as the projectiles tore through the air. Agony surged through his body. The system warned him that the pain had become overwhelming, leaving him momentarily paralyzed. Despite the trauma, Heiling's cold-blooded nature took over. He forced his mind to stabilize, developing a sudden tolerance to the suffering. The protagonist gasped for air, shaken by the intensity of the trial. He had known the path was dangerous, but the reality was far more brutal than he imagined. Heiling struggled against the overwhelming agony. The situation had escalated far beyond his expectations. The young man pushed through the shock, refusing to let the pain break his resolve. He tested the limits of his endurance, using fire to force his body to adapt. While the system warned of the damage, Heiling's cold-blooded nature suppressed the trauma. He didn't just recover, he evolved. Now immune to the searing heat, the protagonist moved forward with a lethal focus. Heiling realized the attacks followed a strict pattern. A subtle signal preceded every strike. In the oppressive darkness, sight was useless. The young man decided to rely on the mechanical rhythm of the traps. He activated a specialized skill to sharpen his perception. Every sound became a weapon. The protagonist waited in silence. Suddenly, the exact moment of the trigger revealed itself. With pinpoint accuracy, Hyling reacted to the invisible threat. Hyling realized that sight alone was useless in the oppressive darkness. He needed to synchronize his movements with the mechanical rhythm of the traps. The young man waited for the perfect signal. Once the pattern became clear, the path forward revealed itself. Confidence surged through him. He had finally found the key to surviving this onslaught. Hyling began to manipulate the encounter. He discovered that his reactions to the arrows could directly influence his own growth. By dodging a specific strike, the protagonist felt his body become faster. His agility had increased. Hyling discovered a way to grow stronger. By parrying the red arrows, the young man could increase his raw strength. He pushed his limits further. This time, the protagonist deliberately took hits from yellow arrows to bolster his stamina. Cha Yun-woo reviewed his progress. Every point gained brought him closer to mastering the requirements of his job. Despite the gains, a flaw remained. The masked man realized there was no apparent way to increase his magic power. It was a frustrating limitation, but Hyling refused to let it stop him. He decided to exploit the system to maximize every other attribute. Hyling remained focused on his goal. Every calculated risk was a step toward absolute power. From the shadows, a mysterious observer watched the young man. The protagonist's anomalous behavior sparked a deep curiosity in the entity. The observer felt a strange attraction to Hyling's methods. While others struggled, the masked man showed a level of sensibility that promised a thrilling spectacle. Amused by the potential, the entity anticipated the chaos the tutorial would bring. Hyling was certainly the most interesting piece on the board. After reaching the end point, Cha Yun-woo reviewed his progress. The numbers confirmed that his grueling efforts had paid off. Hyling analyzed his current status. Most of his attributes had increased significantly in a very short time. The growth was not limited to basic numbers. A deeper transformation was taking place. The young man felt a surge of power. His physical capabilities and destructive potential had reached a new level. He approached the interface to finalize the process. The system responded, initiating a recovery sequence to mend his injuries. Hyling felt a sudden surge of energy as the recovery process took hold. The system guided the young man to a sanctuary designed for recovery. For the first time in a while, the protagonist allowed himself a moment of peace. Exhaustion finally caught up with him, and Hyling drifted into a deep slumber. A heavy silence filled the air, masking a hidden presence. A mysterious figure appeared out of nowhere, startling the young man with a playful greeting. Hyling leaped back in shock, his instincts kicking in as he faced the intruder. The protagonist felt a surge of confusion. Despite his heightened senses, the stranger had managed to approach him completely undetected. Hyling wondered if he had encountered a legendary figure known to wander these lands. The hooded man introduced himself as A traveling merchant who offered his services to those passing through. A mysterious merchant appeared, offering essential supplies to players in exchange for payment. A presented his vast inventory, claiming to sell everything that existed in the world. Hyling examined the list with caution, weighing his options carefully. The selection featured legendary artifacts that were far beyond the reach of a typical tutorial player. The young man decided to ignore the tempting items, choosing to prioritize his own physical strength instead. Hyling finally spotted the item he needed. The search was over. The mysterious merchant explained the cost. In this place, currency was replaced by one's own power. The protagonist felt a surge of disbelief. The prices were absurd, bordering on theft. Despite the greed of the seller, the young man remained focused. He had a specific goal in mind. A bold decision was made. Hyling was willing to sacrifice everything he had gained to get what he wanted. Hyling made a bold request. He wanted a ticket to reset his progress in Block A. The merchant questioned the choice. It was a rare request that defied the usual desires of other participants. Most sought shortcuts to advance, but the young man wanted a do-over for a specific purpose. The mysterious seller found the decision intriguing. Hiling had become an entertaining anomaly in the tower. The process was simple. By destroying the ticket, the protagonist would be sent back to the very beginning. The mysterious merchant bid Hiling farewell, hoping for another encounter in the future. A heavy price was demanded for the transaction. Every single stat the young man had earned in Block A was stripped away as payment. Hiling felt his strength vanish instantly. In exchange for his power, he received 10 reset tickets. The protagonist looked at the prize in his hand. It was the key to starting over. Without hesitation, Hiling tore the ticket. He was ready to repeat the trial and grow even stronger. Hiling felt the surge of energy as the reset took effect. A blinding light consumed the young man, transporting him back to the beginning. He arrived at the starting point of the tutorial. The trial of Floor Zero was about to begin once again. This time, the protagonist had a clear goal. He intended to maximize his growth and accumulate every possible stat. Without a moment's delay, Hiling leaped into action. Hiling moved with lethal precision, dodging attacks that would have been fatal to any other. The young man remained calm. He had walked this path many times before. Every repetition served a purpose. He had pushed his limits to perfect his instincts. By tapping into the power of an ancient dragon, the protagonist unlocked a higher plane of perception. The world stripped away its distractions, leaving only the raw essence of the environment. Cha Yun-woo reached the end of his final tutorial run. The repetition had served its purpose. The young man reflected on his progress. He had slashed his completion time from 34 hours to only 4. While his stats had improved, the protagonist knew they were still dangerously low. He remained vulnerable to stronger opponents. He realized the top players were already far ahead. To catch up, the young man had to stop hesitating and truly begin the race. With a cold resolve, Cha Yun-woo stepped forward. He had finally entered the boss room of Block A. Cha Yun-woo set a bold objective. He intended to conquer both sectors without hesitation. The young man surged forward through the corridor. Every movement was precise and driven by a singular purpose. Hiling dodged incoming attacks with fluid agility. The battle had begun in earnest. The protagonist noted that the combat was unfolding faster than he had anticipated. This intensity pushed his limits, granting him a slight increase in power. There was no room for error. The young man pushed himself further, refusing to let his momentum fade. Hiling pushed his limits further. He knew he couldn't afford to slow down. The young man leaped forward, his movements sharp and calculated. Below him lay a forest of spikes. A single mistake meant a brutal end. Hiling accepted the risk. He decided to turn the danger into an advantage. With a daring maneuver, the protagonist narrowly avoided the deadly trap. Hiling pushed himself to the limit. Every movement paid off as his physical capabilities began to evolve. The young man maintained his focus, refusing to let his guard down for a single second. Suddenly, a wall of fire erupted before him. The heat was overwhelming, threatening to consume everything. Instead of retreating, the protagonist charged forward. He faced the flames with unwavering resolve. With a swift and powerful strike, Hiling slashed through the inferno, carving a path through the heat. Hiling's cold-blooded nature granted him a vital resistance to the heat. His senses sharpened as he pushed through the blaze. The young man surged forward, leaving the inferno behind in a blur of speed. Every strained movement paid off. His agility and stamina increased as his body adapted to the intensity of the trial. A sudden impact jolted the protagonist. He gasped, feeling the weight of a hidden threat. Hiling quickly regained his footing, bracing himself for the encounter. Hiling felt his power surge. His stamina and senses reached a new level of intensity. The young man recognized the threat. It was a creature his brother had once warned him about. This enemy was a dangerous mirror. Defeating it was the only way to reach the boss room. Hiling activated a specialized skill. His vision shifted, allowing him to see what others could not. The protagonist analyzed the opponent. He searched for the one flaw in the machine's design. Hiling identified the critical flaw. A single point of failure existed within the creature. The young man struck quickly, testing the enemy's defenses. He recalled the vital information about how the machine processed its surroundings. A sudden realization hit the protagonist. He knew exactly how to bypass the creature's reactions. Hyling leaped into action, combining his heightened senses with a lethal strategy. Hyling struck with precision. He had already deduced the secret behind the creature's movements. The copper puppet exploded in a burst of light. The battle ended as quickly as it had begun. A mysterious figure watched from the shadows. The stranger could not believe what he had just witnessed. Disbelief washed over the observer. Such a feat seemed impossible for someone like the young man. The masked intruder remained stunned. He questioned how the protagonist could possess such knowledge. The masked intruder appeared suddenly, catching Hyling off guard. The stranger struggled to process what he had seen. The young man's tactical analysis far exceeded the capabilities of any ordinary player. Confusion grew within the observer. He could not fathom how Hyling had uncovered the secret so easily. Hyling felt a surge of apprehension. He questioned the motives of a man who looked so frail yet acted so mysteriously. The young man demanded answers. He wanted to know the true intentions of the masked figure. The masked man denied having any ulterior motives. However, Hyling remained skeptical, questioning how the stranger knew so much. The intruder pressed for an answer. He was obsessed with how the young man had uncovered the secret of the puppet's sensors. Hyling admitted he could see the magical strings. This revelation confirmed the stranger's suspicions about the protagonist's extraordinary affinity for magic. Intrigued by this rare talent, the masked figure made a proposal. He wanted Hyling to teach him the secret of seeing and controlling such power. The stranger believed this technique would be a catalyst for his own growth. He offered a fair trade, promising not to ask for the knowledge for free. The masked observer offered a deal. He promised to help Hyling escape in exchange for the secret of his magical control. Hyling remained speechless, completely caught off guard by the stranger's sudden proposal. Thinking the silence was a rejection, the intruder turned to leave. The young man quickly tried to stop him. The masked observer admitted a shocking truth. Despite his knowledge, he was completely unable to manipulate magic. Hyling looked at the wreckage in disbelief. The sheer power required to destroy such a target contradicted everything the stranger had just confessed. The wreckage told a story of immense power. It seemed impossible that someone without magic could cause such devastation. Hyling questioned the identity of the stranger. The man's claims simply didn't add up. Despite the confusion, the young man decided to accept the offer. A deal had been struck. The stranger introduced himself as Yule. He was now ready to serve as a guide. Yule promised to clear a path forward. Hyling followed, though suspicion still lingered. Yule stood before the protagonist, his presence unsettling and mysterious. Hyling questioned the strange way the man presented himself. The masked figure revealed that his current appearance was nothing more than a facade. Yule exposed his true nature, claiming to be a mere child in a disguised body. Despite his age, Yule demanded respect and strict obedience from the young man. Hyling acted with lethal precision. The strike was sudden and calculated. A violent explosion of energy erupted. The impact shattered the enemy's defenses. The protagonist leaped back, creating distance after the devastating blow. He landed firmly, ensuring the threat was completely neutralized. Yule watched the display in silence, stunned by the efficiency of the attack. As they approached their destination, Yule urged the young man to finally speak. Hyling revealed a rare gift. He possessed the innate ability to visually perceive mana. The masked observer wondered if this was a bloodline limit skill. Such genetic anomalies were rare, appearing only in specific worlds. Yule explained that these inherited powers awakened at pivotal moments, passing from one generation to the next. This affinity allowed the ally to sense and taste magic, which had previously helped him identify the weaknesses of the copper puppet. Yule explained that Hyling's brother possessed a rare trait known as perfect adaptation. This innate gift made him naturally compatible with mana. Unlike others from Earth, the brother faced no hardship when manipulating magical energy. He controlled it with the ease of a seasoned expert. Such extraordinary talent did not go unnoticed. The ancient dragon Kalatus chose the young man specifically for these unique traits. This deep connection allowed him to inherit foundational skills that were normally inaccessible to humans. Hyling realized that while others were geniuses, he did not fit that description. The masked observer listened intently as the protagonist compared the flow of mana to a river and magic to a reservoir. Hyling achieved the impossible. Clearing the first block as a solo player earned him a rare and prestigious reward. The system granted him additional points and restored his exhausted energy. The young man stared at his total, realizing the value of his success. In the tower, karma served as more than just a score. It was the ultimate currency, the only way to acquire the tools needed for survival. Despite the windfall, Hyling remained unsatisfied. He knew that to survive the trials ahead, he would need far more power. Stepping forward, the protagonist left the first area behind. A new and more dangerous challenge awaited him in the next block. A group of survivors rested in the aftermath of the trial. Some tended to their wounds while others simply tried to recover. The cost of the tutorial was evident. Many lay broken and bloodied, struggling to survive the brutal environment. A mysterious masked man drew the attention of the crowd. His presence was an anomaly, as he had remained a qualifier far longer than anyone else. The stranger's silence only fueled the curiosity of those around him. He was questioned about his strange attire and his slow progress. Despite the scrutiny, the young man remained focused. He had finally reached the end of his long struggle. Hyling breathed a sigh of relief. The grueling ordeal was finally over. A sudden realization struck the young man. He was no longer alone. A group of survivors stared at him in disbelief. They could not fathom how he had survived. The strangers looked on with judgment and confusion. Their silence felt heavy with suspicion. Anger flared within Hyling. He had no intention of associating with those who doubted him. Hyling severed all ties with his former teammates. He felt no loyalty toward those who had judged him. The conversation shifted as the masked man sought to resume his lesson. Hyling recalled the mention of mana streams. Yule possessed a surprising depth of knowledge regarding magic. Though the concepts were complex, the young man grasped the basics. The masked figure pondered the most effective way to perceive this power. He sought a method to make the invisible tangible. However, Yule struggled to explain the process. Since the ability had come naturally to him, the mechanics remained a mystery. Since the lessons had reached a dead end, Yule suggested they part ways. The tutorial was over, and it was time for each to follow their own path. With a final wave, the two allies separated. Hyling stepped away, leaving the guidance of the masked man behind. As the protagonist walked, a sudden presence interrupted his thoughts. Someone had approached him with surprising speed. Hyling paused, sensing a new individual attempting to get his attention. A mysterious figure observed the young man with keen interest. He saw a spark of potential in Hyling that he couldn't ignore. Bild introduced himself as an executive of the prestigious Arangdan. He extended a welcoming invitation for the young man to join him. The offer left the other qualifiers in shock. They recognized the name of the legendary group that had completely dominated the tutorial. While some found hope in the invitation, others were struggling for their lives. A desperate battle unfolded as the warriors clashed with relentless enemies. The situation was rapidly spiraling out of control. One fighter realized the grim reality of their position. Failure here meant they would never leave the tutorial alive. A cold gaze filled with suspicion. The man's patience had finally run out. Yule remained alert, clutching his weapon as the tension between them reached a breaking point. The blonde man viewed Yule as a liability. To him, the young man's magical analysis was useless in a real fight. Without warning, the man struck. He seized Yule by the collar, catching him completely off guard. Betrayal struck swiftly. The man abandoned Yule to the monsters, urging the others to flee for their lives. Yule felt a surge of raw anger. The betrayal cut deeper than any blade. The young man demanded an explanation for such a cruel act. He couldn't fathom how they could turn on him. Trust had been shattered. Yule had once believed these people were true comrades, but that illusion was gone. The blonde man dismissed the concerns with cold indifference. He saw no reason to justify his actions. Disgust filled the protagonist. He wanted nothing more than to erase these traitors from his sight. Yule proposed a fragile truce. To survive the tutorial, the group had to pretend they were strangers. The blonde man suddenly bowed in desperation. A frantic apology broke the tense silence. The young man was bewildered by the sudden change in attitude. He questioned the meaning behind this sudden submission. Desperate to protect his reputation, the blonde man begged for secrecy. He pleaded for the past to remain buried. The group continued to plead for mercy. They placed their hopes on Yule's silence. Yule showed no mercy. He demanded that the group disappear from his sight forever. The blonde man watched him walk away, his mind racing with anxiety. A lie had already been told to build. The traitor had claimed that Yule sacrificed himself. Fear gripped the man. If the truth ever surfaced, his prestigious position in Arangdan would vanish instantly. Desperation turned into a cold resolve. The blonde man realized he couldn't let Yule live to tell the tale. The blonde man felt no guilt. Betraying Yule once had been difficult, but the second time felt effortless. He scanned the surroundings. The secluded area provided the perfect cover for a silent execution. The traitor believed he held every advantage. Bild had no idea what Yule actually looked like. A simple lie would suffice. The death of a comrade could easily be blamed on the dangers of the boss room. His mind raced with thoughts of the Arangdan. To protect his status within the prestigious group, he had to erase any evidence of his deception. The blonde man was caught off guard. A sudden strike had shattered his composure. Agony erupted as the attack landed. The masked stranger had appeared out of nowhere. The traitor collapsed in shock. He realized too late that he was no longer the predator. The masked man had intended to stay out of the conflict. However, the betrayal of Yule had triggered a dormant memory. A haunting resemblance surfaced. In Yule's struggle, the stranger saw a ghost from his own past. The masked stranger remembered a painful past. His own brother had suffered a similar betrayal. The surrounding warriors were paralyzed by shock. They had no idea how the intruder had approached them. The stranger viewed the traitor's actions with cold contempt. He believed such audacity deserved a permanent price. Agony consumed the blonde man. He screamed in desperation as he felt his strength slip away. Blinded by rage, the traitor launched a final frantic attack. It was a useless gesture of defiance. The masked stranger moved with an unsettling silence. He had become a ghost in the heat of battle. A sudden strike severed the traitor's hope. The blow was precise and merciless. The masked stranger showed no pity. He mocked the blonde man's struggle while holding him in a grip of iron. A cold promise was made. The intruder intended to leave the traitor permanently broken. Other warriors tried to intervene, but they were gripped by confusion. They couldn't understand why a stranger would interfere in their conflict. The masked stranger justified his actions with cold logic. If others played by their own rules, he would do the same. A command echoed through the air. The intruder demanded total submission from the remaining warriors. Hesitation was not an option. The mysterious man tightened his grip, leaving no room for defiance. Desperation took over as the masked figure grew more aggressive. He brooked no disobedience. Terrified by the overwhelming pressure, the men surrendered their steel. The men pleaded for Kane's release, their voices trembling with fear. The masked stranger only smirked, viewing their desperation as a sign of weakness. In a flash of movement, the intruder struck with brutal efficiency. The blonde man was slammed into the ground, his screams echoing through the room. Defeated and broken, the traitor could only stare in shock at his own helplessness. The man tried to protest, but his words were cut short. A sudden, lethal strike tore through the air. The masked stranger moved with terrifying speed, leaving a trail of blood in his wake. The remaining warriors watched in horror, paralyzed by the sheer intensity of the attack. They attempted to fight back, but the intruder was already steps ahead of them. The masked stranger lunged forward. The warriors had no time to react to the sudden assault. Every movement was calculated. The intruder focused on a single lethal objective. A swift strike disabled the first opponent. The gap in their abilities was absolute. Agony filled the air as the fighters collapsed. Their desperate cries were the only response to the onslaught. The mysterious man turned away. He remained cold and indifferent to the chaos he had unleashed. The masked stranger struck with blinding speed. The attackers were neutralized before they could even blink. The violence was absolute. The defeated men lay broken, completely stripped of their strength. Yule watched in utter disbelief. The sheer scale of the power on display was terrifying. The young man had known the intruder was strong, but this level of dominance was beyond imagination. The masked stranger noticed the reaction. A cold comment broke the silence, leaving Yule stunned. The masked stranger offered a final, cryptic warning. He urged Yule to be wary of those around him. Stunned by the encounter, Yule could barely find his voice. The young man reached out as the figure began to leave. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Yule shouted his thanks. He vowed to reach the same level of strength as his mysterious savior. The stranger didn't look back, his footsteps echoing as he distanced himself. Suddenly, a specific destination was mentioned. Yule froze, confused by the unexpected suggestion. The masked stranger offered a final piece of advice before departing. Yule watched the mysterious figure, unable to shake the feeling of uncertainty. The young man recalled the specific location mentioned, wondering why it mattered. A sense of confusion clouded Yule's mind as he processed the cryptic clue. Nearby, the defeated enemies lay broken, a grim reminder of the stranger's overwhelming power. A mysterious man watched with a sinister sense of amusement. The stranger found the situation quite entertaining. He decided to wake the drowsy youth with a few words. Yule struggled to shake off the lingering sleep. The young man felt irritated that his rest had been interrupted. The mysterious man brought up the recent chaos. He mocked those who had arrogantly believed they were destined for the Orangdan. Yule remained indifferent. The young man had already foreseen the downfall of such tactless people. A sudden realization struck Yule. The scale of the victory was far more impressive than he had first thought. The stranger revealed that the feat was achieved alone. This solo performance left Yule genuinely amazed. The conversation shifted to the consequences. While the victory was great, it likely earned the ire of the Orangdan's elite. The mysterious man proposed a partnership. He saw the value in recruiting a solo player who stood apart from everyone else. Yule hesitated. The young man worried about the inevitable conflict with the elite forces of the Orangdan. The stranger laughed off the concerns. He invited Yule to accompany him to investigate the situation further. Yule teased the older man. He pointed out that such a reckless habit was quite dangerous. The mysterious man smirked. He questioned if the youth was actually planning to back out. The mysterious man looked at Yule with a playful smirk. He found the situation amusing. The stranger chuckled, admitting his fondness for high-stakes danger. A memory surfaced of a trial involving 4 mysterious portals. The young man recalled a pivotal moment from his past. The protagonist remembered how the difficulty scaled with each door. While his brother had chosen a challenging path, the young man had played it safe. Now, the man decided to change his fate. He chose the most dangerous path of all. A legendary weapon was the ultimate goal. Yule sought the power of the vampiric dagger. The masked man moved forward, his presence hidden and silent. A new challenge appeared. The protagonist had to cross the pond to proceed. The waters were treacherous. This place was a death trap, uninhabitable for any living soul. Yule tested the environment. A small stone was tossed to uncover the truth. Yule tossed a stone into the water to test the environment. The object sank rapidly, confirming the protagonist's suspicions. The young man realized the pond was a death trap. Its crushing pressure would destroy any ordinary person. To see through the deception, Yule activated his special vision. With the truth revealed, the masked man stepped forward to uncover the secret path. Yule pressed against the barrier, forcing his way through. The hidden path finally yielded to his touch. A secret area was revealed, granting the protagonist a reward for his discovery. With the way clear, the masked man stepped deeper into the dungeon. He had found exactly what he was looking for. Yule discovered the white moss. It was a rare find in the caves, though its taste was foul and its effects on humans were unpleasant. While animals thrived on the plant, the substance acted as a poison to most people. Ingesting it often led to severe physical rejection. Because of these risks, most players avoided the moss entirely. It was seen as a useless hazard rather than a resource. However, Yule possessed a secret passed down from his brother. There was a specific method to utilize the moss as a powerful ingredient. Certain creatures had evolved to harness the energy of the moon by generating internal heat. This biological adaptation allowed them to consume the moss without harm. Yule analyzed the properties of the white moss. By combining it with a specific heart, he could create a miracle drug to enhance his physical capabilities. The young man reflected on the fragility of the human body. He knew how easily flesh and bone could fail under pressure. A stronger framework was necessary for survival. Yule sought a way to transform his physiology to gain a decisive advantage in combat. To achieve this evolution, a specific catalyst was required. The protagonist prepared himself for the task ahead. With a swift movement, the masked man readied his weapon. The time for preparation had ended. Yule identified the necessary components for his evolution. A specific heart and rare moss were the keys to transforming his body. A hidden quest revealed the nature of the creatures in this room. These monsters were the only ones capable of providing what the young man needed. The red centipede emerged as a formidable opponent. Its instincts were sharp, making it a dangerous target. The masked stranger launched a sudden strike. He moved with lethal precision to bring the beast down. The attack failed to deliver a killing blow. The creature's exoskeleton proved to be far more durable than expected. The masked stranger realized that conventional strikes were useless. The creature's armor was nearly impenetrable, and his weapon remained stuck in a shallow wound. Time was of the essence. Without knowing the monster's endurance or the depths of the dungeon, the intruder needed a faster way to end the fight. He decided to activate a hidden power. A specialized vision was required to see through the beast's defenses. The red centipede loomed over him, a towering wall of chitin and aggression. Through his enhanced sight, the young man spotted it. He had finally located the creature's only fatal weakness. The masked stranger faced the towering beast. Every muscle was tense as he prepared for the final clash. Precision was the only way to survive. The young man calculated the exact moment to strike. The creature lunged forward with overwhelming force. It was a race against time. He moved with lethal efficiency. A single touch was all he needed to gauge the distance. With a sudden burst of speed, the intruder dove toward the monster. The killing blow was finally within reach. The masked stranger lunged forward, driving his blade with lethal intent. The strike landed with immense force, but the result was not what he expected. The weapon failed to penetrate deeply. The intruder realized the creature possessed a hidden layer of defense. A moment of hesitation flickered as the young man processed the unexpected resistance. The opening was gone. The beast countered instantly, sending the attacker flying backward. The masked stranger was thrown back with violent force. The impact left him stunned and vulnerable. Internal injuries tore through his body as the creature's toxic fluid seeped into his bloodstream. The intruder assessed the damage. His body was shattered, and his spine was fractured. Despite the agony, a chilling calm settled over the young man. His cold-blooded nature suppressed the panic, allowing him to remain composed in the face of death. The masked stranger tightened his grip on the blade. His iron will manifested as a new power, granting him the strength to resist the agony. The monstrous creature loomed over him, a nightmare of teeth and chitin. With a sudden burst of movement, the intruder drove the weapon deep into the beast. He didn't flinch. Every muscle was focused on the lethal strike, ignoring the chaos around him. The young man leaped back, narrowly avoiding the creature's crushing weight as he analyzed the enemy's weakness. Cha Yunwoo spotted a critical flaw. Only one spot remained unprotected by the creature's hard shell. The young man tightened his grip on the blade. he prepared to exploit the opening. With lethal precision, the protagonist drove the weapon straight into the abdomen. The strike landed perfectly. The blade pierced deep into the beast's only vulnerability. Blue fluid sprayed across the mask as the attack connected. The monster's defenses had finally failed. The lethal strike crushed the creature's defenses. A sickening sound echoed through the silence. Cha Yan-woo lay exhausted, the massive beast looming over the fallen warrior. The young man gasped for air, his strength nearly depleted. The monster let out a final, guttural sound of defeat. The beast let out a final, guttural sound as its life faded. Cha Yan-woo lay collapsed on the ground, completely drained of his strength. The young man reached out, his fingers brushing against the cold earth. Every breath felt like a struggle as he fought to regain his composure. A strange energy began to surge through the protagonist, signaling a new awakening. Cha Yan-woo approached the remains with a cautious gaze. He sensed something valuable hidden within. A sudden surge of energy erupted from the creature's core. The young man seized the glowing orb, feeling its immense power resonate through his hand. The intensity of the energy left him breathless. It was a force beyond anything he had encountered. Elsewhere, a commander looked upon his subordinates with utter disappointment. He questioned how his men had fallen into such a state. The commander looked at his subordinates with utter disappointment. Their pathetic state was a disgrace. He felt betrayed by the incompetence of the men he had recruited. The situation had spiraled out of control. The commander realized that the attacker had intentionally targeted his men. It was a clear sign of contempt for their authority. A witness described the culprit as a figure hiding behind a white mask. The detail only added to the mystery. The commander pondered the identity of the intruder. A masked stranger had managed to outmaneuver his entire squad. A sudden movement signaled a shift in the situation. The young man decided to continue his search. A cold determination settled in his gaze. The victory was absolute. By slaying a formidable foe, the protagonist earned a rare reward of karma. Consuming the heart of the beast triggered a powerful reaction. The energy synergized with the white moss, unlocking hidden potential. A supernatural force surged through Cha Yan-woo. His shattered skeleton was not just mended, but reinforced beyond its original strength. The transformation continued as the energy flowed into his muscles. Every fiber was repaired and fortified for the battles ahead. The young man let out a long breath of relief. The agonizing pain had finally vanished. This hidden corridor had provided more than just safety. It granted the protagonist permanent enhancements to his physical vessel. Even a small percentage of progress made a noticeable difference. Cha Yan-woo felt his fatigue fading as his body became more efficient. Cha Yan-woo analyzed his updated status. The rewards from the recent kill had far exceeded his expectations. Despite the physical gains, the young man recognized a critical weakness. His limited mana would become a liability as he climbed higher. This deficiency hindered his growth. The immense power of the ancient dragon remained locked, demanding more magic to be fully realized. The protagonist decided to set those concerns aside for now. Worrying would not solve the problem. He shifted his focus to a new asset. Physical resistance promised to mitigate the brutal impact of future encounters. Cha Yan-woo relied on his cold-blooded nature to stay focused. It was the only way to keep his senses sharp during the chaos of battle. However, the physical pain still lingered, leaving the young man vulnerable. He realized that mastering his new skill was the only way to gain a true advantage. Once perfected, the ability would render poisons and curses meaningless. The protagonist knew that even limited control would prove invaluable. He shifted his attention to another asset. It was time to activate the power that accelerated his thoughts. Combat will emerged as his most vital tool. This indomitable spirit allowed for rapid decision-making when every second counted. Cha Yan-woo understood that rapid judgment was a dangerous gamble. A single mistake could lead to total annihilation. The young man examined his new abilities. Their ratings were surprisingly high for someone still in the tutorial. To hide his identity and focus his mind, the protagonist donned a mask. With lethal precision, he tore through the enemy ranks. The creatures stood no chance against his speed. The battle ended quickly. Cha Yan-woo noted his growing kill count as the monsters fell beneath his feet. Cha Yan-woo felt a growing familiarity with the process. The routine of the hunt was becoming second nature. The young man examined the remains of his prey. These specific components were essential for his plan. A precise mixture of rare ingredients had been prepared. The protagonist ensured the proportions were flawless. He combined the toxic fluid with the organic remains. A volatile reaction was about to begin. The concoction reacted violently. The transformation into a lethal weapon was nearly complete. A volatile powder was created using fire essence. This substance possessed a dangerous capacity for destruction. Cha Yan-woo carefully collected the explosive material. Every grain was a potential weapon. The young man secured his supplies. He was preparing for a confrontation. His mind shifted to the next targets. The mission was far from over. A colony of blue army ants awaited him. The protagonist faced a swarm of disciplined predators. The blue army ants were formidable predators. These creatures lived in a strict society, bound by absolute loyalty to their queen. A single worker was a dangerous foe, driven by a relentless instinct to protect the colony at any cost. Cha Yan-woo knew the risks. Facing a swarm of selfless soldiers in a direct clash was a gamble he wasn't willing to take. However, a legendary prize awaited him deeper in the cave. The vampiric sword of Bathory lay hidden beyond the swarm. The weapon belonged to a fallen lord of vampires, a bringer of death who once drained the vitality of countless victims. The weapon was a rare treasure of immense power. Its low artifact number proved it was a legacy of a truly formidable being. Cha Yan-woo refused to let such an opportunity slip away. The protagonist remained calm. He believed that no matter how impossible the obstacle seemed, a way forward always existed. With a sudden, decisive movement, the young man vanished from sight. The blue army ants were left confused. They sensed a presence, but their enemy had already outmaneuvered them. Cha Yan-woo struck with blinding speed. The element of surprise was his greatest weapon. The blue army ants were caught off guard. Confusion gripped the swarm as their lines were breached. A small flame flickered to life. The protagonist prepared the catalyst for a devastating blow. The young man retreated instantly. He left behind a ticking time bomb for the colony. A massive explosion ripped through the tunnel. The swarm was decimated in a single fiery eruption. The explosion was devastating. Hundreds of enemies perished in the fiery blast. Cha Yan-woo remained calm amidst the chaos. The mission was far from over. The protagonist struck with lethal precision. One by one, the survivors fell. No mercy was shown to those who remained. The young man carved a path through the swarm. Most of the casualties were merely young or unborn. The real threat still lingered. Cha Yan-woo realized that the explosion had only thinned the herd. Many worker ants had survived the blast. The young man decided to prioritize his objective. He would secure Bathory's vampiric sword before dealing with the rest. A sudden shift in the air caught his attention. The protagonist needed to refocus his senses immediately. An unexpected presence loomed close. The masked man felt a sudden surge of hostility. Danger struck from above. The enemy moved with blinding speed to launch a surprise attack. Cha Yan-woo tried to regain his focus. A massive shadow loomed over him, signaling a threat of immense proportions. The creature's wings beat with a violent force. The air trembled as the monster prepared its assault. The young man looked tiny compared to the behemoth. The scale of the enemy was overwhelming. Despite the danger, the protagonist remained calm. He gripped his weapon, ready to face the coming storm. The monster opened its maw. A terrifying hunger radiated from the beast as it locked onto its prey. A colossal threat emerged from the depths. The boss monster had finally revealed itself. The creature loomed over the battlefield, radiating a suffocating presence. Cha Yan-woo reacted instantly. He drew his blade to meet the onslaught. The young man remained composed. He knew a way out existed within these tunnels. The protagonist scanned the area. The objective was finally within his sight. The target was finally located. The path to escape lay just ahead. Cha Yun-woo prepared himself. Every nerve was tuned for the coming clash. The young man lunged forward. A single, precise strike was all that mattered. The blade found its mark. He pierced the only vulnerability in the creature's armor. The protagonist didn't hesitate. He moved with lethal efficiency to finish the job. Cha Yun-woo struck with blinding speed. The attack was a blur of lethal precision. The blade sliced through the air, finding its mark. The massive creature collapsed, defeated by a single decisive blow. Without wasting a second, the young man moved toward the exit. He paused for a moment, his gaze fixed on the path ahead. Cha Yun-woo crossed the threshold into a forbidden domain. He had finally entered the sanctuary of the vampiric monarch. Within the depths of the shrine, the legendary Batory awaited. The protagonist focused on the monarch's most prized possession. The vampiric dagger was a unique artifact of immense power. Its blade was designed to drain the very life force of any opponent. A smirk played on the young man's lips. This hidden piece was exactly what he needed to close the gap between himself and the top rankers. While its basic abilities were impressive, the weapon's true potential remained locked. Cha Yun-woo knew that a greater power was still sealed within. Cha Yun-woo recognized that the artifact's true value remained hidden. A powerful ability was still sealed within the blade. The weapon carried a dark and predatory legacy. It felt as though ancient monsters were waiting to be unleashed. The young man remained calm, though the air grew heavy with tension. He gripped the hilt firmly, preparing to claim the weapon's power for himself. Suddenly, a dark energy surged, wrapping around the protagonist's arm like a living shadow. The weapon possessed a sentient will. To fail its test was to lose one's mind to the darkness. Cha Yun-woo relied on the research his brother had left behind. There was a way for a novice to bend the blade to his will. The method was reckless. To any observer, the young man's actions would have seemed like pure madness. He gripped the hilt with unwavering resolve. The power within began to stir. With a sudden strike, the protagonist forced the connection. He dared to challenge the artifact's dominance. The weapon was more than a tool. It was a complex skill, and a devastatingly difficult one to master. The vampiric monarch had been consumed by greed. Unwilling to let anyone possess her treasure, she sealed the blade's true essence away from the world. But the long wait had ended. The ancient seal finally shattered. The true form of the dagger revealed itself, a terrifying artifact designed to drain the very life and soul from its victims. Cha Yun-woo gazed at the weapon. He now held a power that could devour everything in its path. The weapon granted terrifying new abilities. It could now bleed enemies dry and steal their very essence, a power coveted by the strongest in the tower. Cha Yun-woo felt the surge of this dark energy. He was ready to test the blade's hunger. With a cold resolve, the young man decided it was time to feast. A single, blinding strike cleaved through the air. The monster had no time to react. The attack was precise and lethal. The creature collapsed, completely overwhelmed by the sudden onslaught. The creature let out a desperate cry as it realized it was outmatched. Cha Yun-woo remained calm, his focus absolute as he prepared the final blow. With a sudden burst of speed, the young man lunged forward to seize his prey. He pinned the monster down, leaving the beast with no way to escape. The blade struck home, beginning the process of draining the creature's very existence. Cha Yun-woo pinned the creature down. The hunt had reached its brutal conclusion. A cold command was given. The process of consumption began. The monster's essence flowed into the blade. This stolen power fueled the weapon's growth. Every drop of vitality served a purpose. The dagger evolved, becoming more lethal with every second. The Queen Blue Army ant fell. For slaying the boss, the young man claimed a significant reward. The battle reached its end. Cha Yun-woo claimed his reward for defeating the formidable queen. Elsewhere, a strange discovery was made. A hidden place emerged that defied previous knowledge. Doubts arose about the location. The red-haired man grew impatient with his companion's hesitation. Despite the tension, a playful bond remained between the two. The young man refused to turn back. A sudden shift in mood occurred. The red-haired man's gaze turned serious as he recalled a relentless hunter. The red-haired man surveyed the carnage. He recognized the work of a relentless hunter. The duo marveled at the sheer power displayed. Such a rapid growth in strength seemed impossible. The young man remained silent, overwhelmed by the scale of the slaughter. A heavy realization settled between them. This was a threat that could not be ignored. The remains of the monsters served as a grim testament to the opponent's lethality. The remains of the creatures left behind were a chilling testament to a power that grew far too quickly. The red-haired man wondered how such a technique could exist. He suspected a hidden piece had been discovered in this desolate place. A rare talent like this would not stay secret for long. The man decided to recruit the mysterious player before other clans could intervene. Suddenly, a piercing sound echoed through the tunnels. The duo froze as a new threat emerged. They stared in shock. Something was approaching them from the darkness of the cave. The red-haired man observed the youth with a calculating gaze. A strategic interest had been sparked. Cha Yun-woo reached a monumental milestone. The final kill completed a grueling quest. A powerful transformation took hold. The fragments of fire and frost merged, rewriting the young man's very biology. He summoned his status window to assess the changes. The evolution was complete. The results were staggering. His attributes had soared, and a lethal new arsenal of skills had emerged. Cha Yun-woo focused on the newly acquired nature. It promised a biological evolution that would redefine his limits. The protagonist analyzed the benefits of his reinforced anatomy. The ability to heal rapidly and resist exhaustion was a game changer. However, the young man had a deeper purpose for seeking this power. It was not just about survival. With his physical vessel now sufficiently strengthened, the dormant process of ascension finally resumed. The transformation reached its peak. Cha Yun-woo had successfully evolved his body into that of an immature dragon. A notification appeared, offering the chance to make his achievements public. Cha Yun-woo made his choice instantly. The young man believed that anonymity was his greatest advantage. Fame would only bring unwanted attention from the powerful. Despite remaining unknown, his progress was undeniable. He had climbed significantly in the rankings. However, the gap between the protagonist and the top players remained staggering. Cha Yun-woo pondered the sheer power of the tower's elite. He knew he had to accelerate his progress to close the gap. A sudden disturbance broke the silence. The young man sensed an unexpected presence nearby. The masked warrior wondered if an outsider had entered the area, as no other players had appeared during his stay. Suspicion grew as the protagonist recalled a past conflict. He feared that the Orangdan group was seeking revenge for a previous encounter. With a sharp gaze, the young man remained hidden, waiting for the intruder to reveal themselves. The masked stranger struck with blinding speed. A lethal blow was unleashed without warning. Doyle was caught completely off guard. The sudden attack left the young man frozen in shock. Panic surged as the youth fell back. He had no time to react to the onslaught. The red-haired man intervened instantly. He deflected the blade with a powerful strike to protect his ally. The weapon clattered to the ground. The intruder stood still, his intentions remaining a mystery. The red-haired man reacted with confusion. The suddenness of the assault had left him unsettled. The masked stranger remained calm. A single question was posed to uncover the identity of the opponent. Tension filled the air as the two faced off. The red-haired man questioned the intruder's motives and his knowledge of the organization. The warrior grew skeptical. He found the abrupt attack illogical if the stranger truly sought answers. The young man's voice turned cold. He concluded that such persistence could only stem from malicious intent. The red-haired man apologized for the misunderstanding. He admitted that their approach had been poorly planned. The masked stranger remained silent. His gaze was cold and calculating as he observed the situation. The warrior shifted the conversation. He demanded to know the true reason for being tracked. Suddenly, the red-haired man's demeanor changed. He made a bold and unexpected proposal for an alliance. The request left everyone stunned. The masked stranger could only stare in disbelief at the absurdity of the offer. The red-haired man's sudden change in attitude sparked immediate irritation. His companions found the situation utterly absurd. The masked stranger attempted to leave, completely unimpressed. However, the persistent man refused to let the conversation end. Desperate for an answer, the red-haired man reached out. He wouldn't let the stranger simply walk away. The man doubled down on his request. He firmly insisted that they should become comrades. The proposal was met with total disbelief. To the red-haired man, the idea of being ignored was simply impossible. The masked stranger remained cold. He saw no value in the others and flatly rejected the idea of a partnership. The red-haired man was stunned. He couldn't believe his own identity was unknown to the stranger. Shock turned into an explosion of ego. The man was outraged that his fame as the tutorial's biggest star meant nothing. Doyle stepped in to manage the situation. He apologized for his companion's snobbish nature and asked for patience. Seeking a fresh start, Doyle decided to introduce them properly. He presented himself and his arrogant partner, Khan. Cha Yun-woo was stunned. The names belonged to elite players who had dominated the tutorial rankings. Doyle acted humble, though his presence in this sector was highly irregular. The protagonist decided to take a leap of faith and accept their identities. A hidden power awakened. Cha Yun-woo activated his special vision to see beyond the surface. The truth was revealed through their aura. Their honest intentions were written in the light of their souls. Cha Yun-woo questioned why elite players would return to a cleared area just to scout him. Doyle asked if the young man was already tied to any team or clan. The recruiter explained that they needed a small party to acquire a specific artifact in Block E. When asked why they couldn't find locals, Doyle admitted that most players in that area were already affiliated. Cha Yun-woo realized his solo achievements and his victory over Kane's group had made him a target of interest. Cha Yun-woo realized that his solo dominance and the defeat of Kane's group had made him far too visible. Doyle explained the situation, admitting that even they needed a third partner to secure a powerful artifact. The target was a crown dropped by a savage ruler, an item that granted commanding presence but held little value for the elite duo. A darker memory surfaced. The protagonist recalled how betrayal had shattered his brother's trust, proving that the tower was a place of ruthless survival. In such a treacherous environment, the young man believed that comrades were often nothing more than burdens to be discarded. Doyle offered a tempting reward, ensuring the terms were favorable to secure a partnership. Cha Yun-woo accepted the proposal, but only under one specific condition. The protagonist demanded every single drop that wasn't the primary artifact they were seeking. Khan agreed to the deal, though he warned that the young man would have to prove his worth first. The red-haired man viewed the encounter as destiny and suggested they finally exchange names. A pact was sealed with a handshake. In a place of war, real identities were a liability. The young man chose a code name to hide his true self. His achievements were undeniable. Clearing multiple sectors alone had earned the protagonist immense rewards. A defeated foe struggled to comprehend the gap in power. The human strength was simply overwhelming. A final, lethal blow ended the struggle. The battle was over. The defeated opponent struggled to comprehend the gap in power. Such rapid growth seemed impossible for someone who had been in the lower blocks so recently. Cha Yun-woo stepped forward, leaving the carnage behind. A new gateway opened, signaling the end of one trial and the start of another. Crossing the threshold brought a sudden surge of energy. The protagonist felt his strength and stamina fully restored as he entered Block E. While some found the previous environment suffocating, others missed the quiet darkness. The group's reactions varied as they breathed the fresh air. This transition marked a shift in the tutorial. The previous areas served as a place to hone skills, preparing the warriors for the true tests ahead. The outside served as the ultimate proving ground. Here, the skills honed during the initial stages were put to the test. A system notification appeared. Cha Yun-woo had officially entered the trial of Block E. Along with the new challenge, the protagonist received a mysterious token. The objective was clear. To prove his worth, the young man had to collect 99 of these items. A companion expressed deep frustration. The nature of the trial sparked a sense of dread. The rules were clear and cruel. Tokens could be traded, but they could also be taken by force. For many, murder became the most efficient path to success. The trial turned participants into predators. Cha Yan-woo observed the situation with a cold, calculating gaze. The young man wondered if his opponent had already secured every single token to end the game quickly. Determined to move forward, the protagonist urged his companion to head toward Block E to find the next hidden piece. Block E was an immense territory, dwarfing every previous area combined. To the east, jagged black mountains rose like a natural fortress, blocking the path. The western lands offered a stark contrast, where a calm river carved through the plains. Further south, the terrain shifted into a series of rolling green hills. Heading north led deeper into a suffocating dense forest. The terrain shifted drastically toward the forest's edge. A treacherous swamp awaited those who ventured too far. Small monsters claimed the outskirts. Goblins and kobolds established their own settlements in the shadows. These creatures were merely the beginning. More formidable threats lurked within the depths. Diverse and lethal beasts guarded the territory. Each region demanded a different strategy for survival. The group pressed forward. They entered the dense greenery, unaware of the dangers ahead. An arsenal of lethal weapons awaited the coming conflict. The young man questioned the strange alliance between the survivors and the man who had crushed Kane's group. A report revealed that the suspects had vanished from their original sector and were spotted elsewhere. The revelation sparked immediate irritation. Such critical information had been overlooked until now. Frustration boiled over as the man realized the enemy had likely scouted a powerful new ally. The man seethed with anger. It became clear that Khan and Doyle had secured a powerful ally to support their schemes. This negligence was an insult. The young man realized that allowing the intruder to roam free was a calculated move to humiliate the entire island. The situation had escalated beyond a simple skirmish. With his subordinates waiting, the leader prepared to take decisive action. He decided to hunt the masked provocateur down. There was no more room for hesitation. Far away, a lonely campfire flickered in the darkness, marking the resting place of the target. Hyling wondered how they had traveled so far. The constant flight from his enemies had left the young man exhausted and drained. The sight of the night sky brought back memories of Africa. He recalled how Young-woo had always found peace in such quiet solitude. A sudden movement broke the silence. The masked man remained alert, sensing a presence nearby. Hyling thought of Khan and Doyle. Unlike other players, those two possessed a rare confidence and a free spirit that seemed natural to them. The duo's ability to accept any hardship intrigued the young man. He questioned the origins of such an unusual pair. Khan and Doyle fought with a synergy that seemed instinctual. Their teamwork was so seamless it appeared as if they had shared a bond for a lifetime. The masked man questioned the nature of their connection. It was hard to imagine how two people from such prestigious backgrounds could endure these hardships together. He remained captivated by the absolute faith they placed in one another. To the observer, the duo simply belonged together. Their mutual trust was undeniable. Despite his curiosity, the young man had no desire to join them or uncover every secret of their relationship. Hyling recalled a specific person. The sight of others' bonds had stirred a dormant memory. As the night deepened, the young man felt a wave of sentimentality. He struggled to silence the unnecessary thoughts flooding his mind. He remained lost in his own reflections, drifting further into a melancholic state. The silence was broken by his companions. They questioned how he could sleep through the commotion surrounding their camp. The masked man apologized for the disturbance. He had waited for the intruders to get closer before dealing with them. The masked stranger remained unbothered. He viewed the situation as a simple matter of physical stiffness and a need to stretch. Doyle grew curious. The young man wondered if the enemies had come specifically for Khan or if his presence was a mere coincidence. A blade was drawn. The cold steel shimmered, signaling the end of the conversation. Khan felt no need for such trivial questions. To the red-haired warrior, the only thing that mattered was the audacity of those who dared draw weapons in his presence. In a single blinding flash, The warrior struck. The attack was so swift and lethal that it left the opposition no time to react. Panic surged through the group as they realized they were outmatched. The survivors scrambled to scatter, hoping to escape the warrior's reach. Khan remained unmoved. The red-haired warrior viewed their desperate struggle with cold indifference. He moved like a blur, cutting through the opposition with lethal precision. No one could keep up with his overwhelming speed. Suddenly, a new presence manifested. Tiny, winged creatures began to swarm the battlefield. A hidden hand commanded the swarm. The insects obeyed a silent will, closing in on the remaining targets. The insect tamer possessed a challenging skill. Controlling mindless creatures required immense focus and precision. The swarm became a living nightmare. Victims screamed in agony as the insects blinded them and tore through their flesh. The chaos echoed through the forest. The attackers' screams signaled a complete collapse of their lines. The tamer remained unfazed. He watched the carnage with a look of mild curiosity. From the shadows, other warriors observed the scene. They looked upon the fallen with cold disdain. The observers mocked the fallen. To them, the attackers were nothing more than fools. A fatal mistake had been made. The intruders had wandered into the worst possible location. Frank and his crew thrived on such misery. They operated as ruthless thieves, stripping their victims of every valuable artifact. The cruelty did not end with theft. Those captured faced a grim fate, sold into slavery or used as disposable test subjects. This blood-soaked business was incredibly lucrative. The man had amassed a fortune in tokens and gear from those he betrayed. A lethal strike descended with blinding speed. The attack was sudden and precise. The blade tore through the air, striking its mark with devastating force. The ambush left the target completely bewildered. There was no time to react. The masked stranger delivered a fatal blow. The man's life ended in a single, brutal motion. Terror gripped the remaining crew. They watched in horror as their leader fell lifeless before the mysterious intruder. The crew members attacked with blind rage, desperate to kill their target. From the shadows, the masked stranger watched them with cold indifference. In a flash of steel, the intruder struck. The attack was too fast for the men to perceive. The masked stranger dodged the counterattack with effortless precision. A single lethal slash ended the struggle. The strike was absolute and final. Panic surged through the survivors as they realized the gap in power. They fled in terror from the looming threat. The masked stranger remained unfazed. His cold gaze pierced through the chaos. Silence fell over the battlefield. Only the aftermath of the slaughter remained. The intruder surveyed the carnage. He counted the fallen with a chilling precision. Yule joined the masked stranger, noting the unusual amount of loot gathered from the thieves. Yule explained the brutal reality of the area. Thousands fought desperately for a handful of tokens. The young man noted that only thieves thrived here. Most players struggled to gather even a fraction of the loot. In Block E, power was the only currency. The strong preyed upon the weak in a vicious cycle of extortion. Yule emphasized the importance of these tokens. They were the only way to obtain karma or trade with the mysterious merchant. The masked stranger listened intently. He realized the true value of the prize now in his possession. Khan and his companion offered a down payment to seal the deal. Despite the concerns about their needs, the two warriors insisted they had more than enough resources. The masked stranger found the situation far simpler than he had anticipated. He looked toward Block E, his final destination, to gather a massive amount of karma. The masked man knew that increasing his magic power was the only way to complete the succession process. A cold resolve took hold. Once the Lizard Man King fell, the masked man planned to eliminate his target. A strange celestial event marked the beginning of the night. In the silence of the forest, a makeshift camp was prepared. Khan warned that their next opponent was formidable. Preparations were essential before facing the Lizard King Hargan. The masked stranger listened in silence, his gaze sharp and calculating. A companion stepped forward, utilizing a mysterious power to assist the group. A small fire crackled in the darkness, attracting strange creatures. Yule watched the spectacle with genuine fascination. The young man explained the tragic nature of the flame bugs and their lethal instinct for survival. The masked stranger reflected on the mysteries of the tower, realizing how much remained unknown. Suddenly, the peaceful moment was shattered by the sounds of a violent struggle. The masked stranger struck with lethal precision. A single blow decided the fate of his enemy. The monster had no time to react. The blade sliced through its defenses in an instant. The battle ended quickly. The mysterious man stood over the fallen creatures, unmoved by the carnage. Khan questioned the strange behavior of the intruder. The man explained that he was gathering materials for a powerful purpose. A legendary artifact required a specific sacrifice. The masked stranger intended to forge a tool of immense sight. The young man looked on with curiosity. He wondered why such a gruesome task was necessary. A sudden realization struck them. They were not alone in the forest. A gruesome discovery awaited them. The remains of a previous encounter stained the ground. The masked stranger investigated the scene. He sought a clue to the timeline of the attack. The evidence was clear. The trail was still warm, meaning the culprit was nearby. The masked stranger estimated the time of the attack. He explained that the value of a hidden area vanished once its secrecy was compromised. Khan wondered if other players had already succeeded. The realization hit that these exclusive zones would never repeat in the same block. The masked stranger noticed a disturbing detail. The tracks led inside the lair, but none led back out. A chilling suspicion grew. The intruder pointed toward a specific clue on the ground. The evidence revealed a grim reality. Something had been forcibly dragged into the depths of the forest. Khan analyzed the grim evidence on the ground. He suspected the lizard man had used a lure to capture other players. The masked stranger remained cryptic. He warned that in this world, the hunters often became the prey. A sudden lethal ambush struck from the shadows. A monstrous claw seized the victim in a suffocating grip. Despite the danger, the masked youth stayed composed. Khan found himself impressed by the boy's unexpected resilience. The masked stranger stood silent, his hidden expression masking a deeper calculation. The young man maintained a facade of innocence. He played the part of the naive companion perfectly. A hidden intensity flickered in his eyes. He was observing everything with calculated precision. Kane looked on with confusion. The masked stranger remained unreadable, hiding his true thoughts. The masked stranger decided it was time to reveal the nature of their surroundings. He questioned if Kane had been briefed on the area. While the red-haired warrior explained the dangers of Hargan's lair, the youth continued to feign ignorance to keep his secrets safe. The truth about their location came to light. Hargan was not just a soldier, but the supreme leader of the lizardmen. The masked stranger acknowledged the threat. Even with their combined strength, defeating such a monster seemed impossible. Kane warned that the danger was twofold. A female boss also guarded the lair, complicating their situation. The odds were stacked against them. Facing two bosses with only 3 people was a suicide mission. A daring alternative emerged. The red-haired warrior decided that theft was their only viable path to victory. A strategic role was assigned. The masked stranger was tasked with distracting the female boss. While the enemy was occupied, Doyle would seize the crown from her head. Kane emphasized the danger. The protagonist had to avoid a direct confrontation to ensure their escape. The masked stranger accepted the mission. This operation felt familiar, reminding him of his time on the African battlefield. He had evolved since those days. No longer a soldier following orders, he was now a mercenary driven by profit. The masked stranger felt ready. The mission had begun. The group crossed a threshold into a forbidden zone. Discovering the hidden lair granted them a significant reward in karma. They were not alone. Guards stood watch over the entrance to the cavern. The creatures immediately spotted the intruders. An alarm was raised to alert the nest. The masked stranger and his companions remained unfazed. They prepared for the inevitable clash. A massive impact shook the ground. The arrival of a powerful foe was imminent. Hargan emerged with overwhelming fury. The Lizardman King would not tolerate trespassers in his domain. A hidden quest had been triggered. The objective was clear: eliminate the king and his entire army to claim the lair. The monster let out a deafening roar. Its bloodlust filled the air, signaling the start of a lethal encounter. The pressure was suffocating. For the companions, this intensity felt like a nightmare from their earliest days of survival. The masked stranger felt a familiar dread. It was a terror that mirrored his first deployment to a war zone in Africa. While others were paralyzed by the pressure, the mysterious man remained unfazed. He had faced far worse in his past. The creature's gaze locked onto its target. The predator sensed a challenge it could not ignore. In a flash of lethal precision, the masked stranger struck. The monster was carved open before it could even react. The wounded beast roared in agony and rage. It vowed to kill the human who had dared to wound it. The masked stranger moved with lethal speed. He launched a sudden, calculated strike. The blade sliced through the air. The attack hit its mark with devastating force. A single blow left a deep, gaping wound. The monster had been carved open in an instant. Enraged by the pain, the beast roared. It viewed the human as a mere nuisance and an unworthy opponent. Cain faced the creature with a confident smile. He knew his true strength was far beyond what the monster imagined. Cain struck with overwhelming power. The blow was decisive and brutal. The monster's gaze shifted. A flicker of shock crossed the creature's mind. Fury took over as the beast demanded a fight. It refused to let its opponent escape. A subordinate pleaded for restraint. The Lizardman King's rage was becoming uncontrollable. Cha Yunwoo and his companion watched from the shadows. They remained cautious as they entered the depths. Guards stood watch over the dark corridor. Their vigilance was the only thing protecting the secrets of the lair. A sudden strike ended the silence. The reptilian warrior fell before he could even react. Cha Yunwoo and his companion stepped over the fallen foe. They moved deeper into the heart of the cave. The discovery left them stunned. The monsters had captured others, and the realization hit hard. A gruesome sight awaited them. The floor was littered with the remains of those who had failed to survive. The ground was a graveyard of those who had come before, a grim reminder of the fate awaiting the captured. Desperate cries echoed through the bars. The survivors begged for a salvation that seemed impossible. Cain recognized the trail. This was the dumping ground for players captured by the monsters. The truth was far more sinister. The creatures used this place as a larder to feed their young. Logic outweighed empathy for the masked man. He believed saving them would only jeopardize their mission to retrieve the crown. Doyle called out to Cain in a state of shock. The young man could not comprehend how his companion remained so indifferent to the horror. While Doyle demanded an emotional response, Cain dismissed the outburst as childish. The argument intensified as the young man pleaded for his humanity to be acknowledged. Cain countered with a cold warning. Saving the prisoners would put Khan in grave danger. Cain reminded the young man that Khan was currently fighting for his life. Every second they wasted only increased the danger. The masked warrior demanded that Doyle focus on the priority. If the young man insisted on following his own judgment, Cain was ready to abandon the plan. A heavy silence fell as the masked man waited for an answer. Doyle felt the weight of the ultimatum. The pressure of the situation began to take its toll. The tension reached a breaking point as the atmosphere shifted. Doyle felt a wave of shame wash over him. The young man apologized, admitting his lack of foresight. Cain urged him to move quickly, reminding Doyle that Khan was waiting for them outside. As they walked past the remains of the fallen, the masked warrior began to analyze Hargan's cruel methods. He wondered if the enemy's own system could be turned against him. A sudden realization struck Doyle. He stopped in his tracks, proposing a risky change to the plan. Doyle proposed a risky change to the original plan. He wanted to rescue the captives trapped within the lair. The young man turned to Cain. A specific tool from the previous night was now essential for his strategy. Suddenly, a reptilian creature lunged from the shadows. The ambush was swift and violent. The monster roared in fury. It viewed the intruders as a desecration of its sacred territory. A more powerful leader emerged, driven by a desperate need to protect its offspring. The creature felt a surge of protective rage. It believed the humans had come to steal its offspring. A sudden voice echoed through the lair. The monster snapped its gaze toward the source of the sound. Cain stood calmly amidst the carnage. The masked man remained unfazed by the beast's presence. The intruder held a small pouch with a playful air. He questioned if the monster enjoyed a spectacle. Hargan was bewildered by the man's audacity. The lizard man king could not comprehend who this stranger was. Cain approached the beast with a playful question. He wondered if the monster enjoyed a good show. Hargan roared in fury. The lizardman king felt a primal need to protect his offspring. Without hesitation, the masked man swung the pouch. A cloud of mysterious powder exploded across the area. Confusion gripped the creature. Hargan could not understand what had just happened. Cain revealed the powder's origin from a dangerous dungeon. He urgently ordered Doyle to lure the insects into the trap. Cain struck with overwhelming force. The impact sent the beast reeling back in agony. Hargan struggled to comprehend the sudden defeat. Fury clouded the lizardman king's mind. A sudden realization hit the creature. The tide of the battle had shifted completely. The monster looked up in disbelief. Cain stood over him with a cold, indifferent gaze. Without a shred of mercy, the masked man dealt a brutal blow to the creature's kin. Hargan roared in absolute fury. The lizardman king could not accept this sudden turn of events. Cain looked down with cold indifference. He reminded the creature how it had viewed humans as mere cattle. The masked man gripped the remains of a fallen ally. A brutal lesson was about to be delivered. Cain leaned in, his voice devoid of emotion. He made it clear that the same cruelty would now be returned. Hargan panicked, desperate to protect what remained. The predator had finally become the prey. The creature reacted with sudden shock. It demanded the human leave it alone. Explosions erupted around the monster's feet. The beast struggled to maintain its footing. A final, agonizing scream echoed through the lair. The battle reached its brutal conclusion. Tarragon, the queen of lizardmen, lay defeated. Her death sent a wave of panic and demoralization through her remaining subjects. Cain stood over the fallen monarch. He reflected on the cruel nature of the world. Cain viewed the world through a lens of brutal necessity. To him, survival was a simple matter of elimination. The masked warrior urged Doyle to secure the prize. Time was running out, and they needed to regroup with Khan. Doyle reached for the golden crown. The artifact was finally within his grasp. A sense of relief washed over the young man. The objective had been achieved. The moment of triumph was shattered. A sudden, violent ambush caught them completely off guard. Hargan erupted in a fit of rage. The monster directed his hatred toward the humans who had dared to cross him. The king of lizardmen looked upon the fallen Tarragon. Grief and shock clouded the creature's mind. Khan watched the scene unfold. The warrior felt a surge of tension as the atmosphere shifted. Heartbroken, Hargan vowed to avenge the queen. He swore that the blood of his fallen kin would be paid for in full. A sudden, violent movement occurred. The monster's hunger for power overcame his sorrow. Doyle and his companions watched in horror. A vow of vengeance had been made, and the cost would be paid in blood. Hargan unleashed a forbidden power. By consuming the strength of the fallen queen, the monster began a terrifying evolution. The air grew heavy as the mutation took hold. A new, more lethal phase of the battle was about to begin. Doyle realized the gravity of the situation. The creature had transformed into something far more dangerous than before. A sudden, violent shockwave ripped through the ground. The power of the evolved king was absolute. A devastating blast erupted, leaving no room for error. Hargan unleashed his most lethal skill. Despite his size, the monster's power as a boss was undeniable. Doyle felt the crushing pressure of the second phase. One wrong move meant certain death. In the midst of the chaos, a flicker of hope appeared. A familiar presence reached out to the young man. Doyle recognized the voice of Doyle's ally. A lifeline had finally arrived to provide a solution. Doyle coordinated with his ally to send a message to Khan. The plan was set. Hargan roared in fury, demanding the humans leave his domain or face the consequences. The Lizardman King threatened to hunt them down, but Doyle remained unfazed. The young man challenged the beast, showing no fear in the face of death. Hargan sensed the danger and prepared for a lethal strike, certain of his victory. Doyle activated a hidden power. His vision shifted, revealing the world through a predator's gaze. The Lizardman King swung his massive blade. The strike was a whirlwind of raw destruction. With blinding speed, Doyle dove beneath the attack. The young man sought a lethal opening. A precise strike sliced through the air. The blade found its mark with surgical accuracy. The counterattack was devastating. Doyle carved through the monster, leaving the beast in absolute shock. A massive impact shook the ground, signaling the start of a coordinated assault. Doyle gave the signal. The time for hesitation had ended. Khan reacted instantly, his focus sharpening as he prepared to strike. With a sudden burst of speed, the red-haired warrior tore through the monster's defenses. The young man watched the carnage unfold, realizing the tide of battle had finally shifted. A violent explosion erupted, sending the young man flying backward from the force of the impact. Doyle analyzed the situation quickly. He realized that a combined effort was the only way to exhaust the enemy. Hargan roared in a blind rage, consumed by a desire for vengeance. Meanwhile, the masked warrior knew that a single moment of distraction would mean death. The Lizardman King gripped his weapon tight, preparing to unleash a devastating wave of heat. Seizing the opening, the masked man lunged forward with lethal precision. The young man struck with sudden violence. The blow landed heavily, catching the creature off guard. He didn't stop there. Another precise strike tore through the monster's defenses. The Lizardman King erupted in a burst of flame and fury. He cursed the intruders with every breath. Gasping for air, the beast struggled to maintain its footing. Its strength was fading. The creature's mind was clouded by grief. He fought not for victory, but to avenge his lost family. The moment had arrived. Doyle acted with lethal precision. The young man lunged forward, delivering a devastating slash across the monster's flank. The Lizardman King collapsed, blood spilling from the deep wound. Doyle seized the opportunity, gripping the creature's head to maintain control. He activated the weapon's hidden power, draining the beast's essence to increase his own proficiency. The process was complete. The protagonist successfully drained the beast's essence, claiming its strength for himself. Cha Yan-woo stood amidst the flames, his power surging as the energy integrated into his body. A cold determination settled over the young man. He had outplayed the monster. Doyle and Khan watched in shock, calling out to their companion in disbelief. The creature let out one final desperate roar, swearing vengeance against everyone before the end. Hargan spent his final moments consumed by hatred. The Lizardman King vowed that the blood of his family would be avenged. The system confirmed the victory. The second boss had fallen, and the rewards for the feat were being calculated. The vampiric dagger did more than kill. It tore the essence from the monster, stealing a fragment of its innate power. The victory came with a price. Due to a lack of proficiency, the stolen power began to shift and warp. The original skill was too great to master fully. It evolved into a fragmented version, granting the young man a new way to ignite his weapons. Kane analyzed the new power he had acquired. It wasn't the full skill he desired, but it provided a lethal advantage for his weaponry. The silence was broken as his companions rushed toward him. They were desperate to know if the warrior had survived the ordeal. Khan reached out with genuine concern. The battle had been brutal, and the physical toll on the young man was evident. Despite the warnings about his wounds, Kane remained stoic. He dismissed their worries, trusting in his own resilience. The persistence of his allies became a nuisance. While they insisted on his recovery, the protagonist found their fussing irritating. Cha Yun-woo dismissed the concern for his own wounds. He urged the others to prioritize the prisoners instead. The survivors expressed their overwhelming gratitude. Relief filled the air as they were finally freed. A rescued man wept with joy. He felt he could finally honor his fallen comrades. Khan remained humble. The warrior insisted they had simply done what was necessary. Curiosity sparked as the man questioned if the red-haired warrior was the legendary bloodsword. Khan laughed off the attention. The warrior played it cool, pretending his secrecy was merely a joke. While the red-haired man boasted, the rescued survivors whispered in awe. They wondered if they were in the presence of the legendary bloodsword. Khan remained humble. He insisted that his role in the raid had been nothing more than supporting his teammates. The warrior shifted the credit. He claimed the victory would have been impossible without the help of another. The atmosphere shifted instantly. The survivors looked on with expressions of pure shock and disbelief. Terror gripped the prisoner. He clung to the bars in a state of absolute panic. Doyle stood before the captive. The masked warrior remained silent, observing the man's distress. The stranger's presence was suffocating. A cold aura emanated from behind the mask. The survivor's gratitude turned into a bitter accusation. He revealed that Khan had ordered the prisoners to be abandoned. The blond man grew indignant. He claimed that the warrior had ceased to be human. Khan looked down with a cold, piercing gaze. The tension between the two men reached a breaking point. The blond man trembled in fear. He could not find the words to defend himself. Khan dismissed the previous insults. He had no patience for the man's delusions. The warrior reminded the survivor of the heavy price paid for his life. He pointed out the severe injuries suffered by the rescuers. Khan's anger flared as he questioned the man's audacity. The power dynamic had shifted completely. The blond man felt the weight of the surrounding gazes. His confidence had vanished, replaced by a suffocating dread. Desperation took over as the survivor begged for mercy. He pleaded for forgiveness, his voice trembling in fear. Doyle remained cold and detached. The masked warrior reminded the man that his apologies were directed at the wrong person. The power dynamic was absolute. The blond man bowed his head in total submission, acknowledging the cruel reality of strength. Beneath the facade of apology, a bitter resentment simmered. The survivor cursed those he now viewed as traitors. The blond man recalled his time in the cells. He had once been the one in control, risking everything to provide for others. But the tides had turned. Now that the survivor was the one in need, his former allies had abandoned him. A subordinate attempted to break the silence, tentatively addressing the man as boss. The former ally offered a hollow apology for the lack of support. He claimed that their lives had been saved by others, leaving the blond man isolated. Desperate to regain favor, the man tried to tempt his former leader with the promise of tokens and artifacts. An ex-subordinate tried to lure the blond man back with the promise of a hidden treasure. The man hoped that greed would outweigh the bitterness of betrayal. The blond man questioned the motives behind this sudden loyalty, wondering if survival was just an excuse for treachery. Fear took over as the subordinate admitted they were powerless against their current saviors. Desperation grew, for the man claimed they had lost everything to the lizard men and could not survive another night. Desperation drove the subordinate to propose a risky theft. He believed that fleeing with the essentials was their only chance at survival. The subordinate argued that they were just as dead without supplies as they would be if caught. The blond man finally conceded, though he demanded a strategy. Confidence returned to the man as he revealed his secret weapon. A companion with a specialized skill for theft would ensure their success. The blond man agreed to the gamble. Now, they only had to finalize the details of their heist. With Kane's return, the atmosphere shifted. It was time to settle the scores and claim what they were owed. Khan reminded Kane of their agreement. It was time to claim the crown of the fallen king. The red-haired warrior expressed his gratitude. He believed the masked man possessed a hidden kindness. While Khan ordered Doyle to retrieve the prize, Kane felt a surge of irritation. The warrior's playfulness was becoming unbearable. Despite the annoyance, the protagonist found it impossible to truly hate the eccentric man. A cold silence settled over Kane as he contemplated the strange bond they shared. Kane claimed the rewards of victory. The ownership of the lair and a powerful weapon now belonged to him. The young man analyzed the scimitar's properties. Despite its strength, the heavy blade did not fit his combat style. He shifted his focus to the lair's resources. While the weapon was replaceable, the items within the nest held more potential. A specific tool caught his eye. This worn dagger was a humble find, but its unique ability to harden with willpower made it valuable. It was not a perfect weapon, but it would suffice. Kane prepared himself to face the remainder of the tutorial. Doyle questioned if something was bothering Kane. The masked man dismissed the concern, claiming there was nothing of value left to find. Kane teased the young man for staring too intently. Doyle remained focused, sensing something unusual. A brilliant blue portal suddenly tore through the air. The group stopped in their tracks, staring at the mysterious rift. A voice echoed from the void, wondering if its hiding spot had been compromised. The intruder seemed amused by the discovery. The mysterious traitor stepped out from the light. He appeared with a playful laugh, admitting he only wanted to surprise them. The mysterious traitor acted dramatic, lamenting the lack of a special bond with Kane. The traitor greeted Khan and Doyle, recalling the time they purchased a ticket pass from him. A realization dawned on the group. Only the elite or those acknowledged by the traitor could form such a bond. It became clear that Kane had earned the traitor's respect. Kane remained unimpressed by the traitor's antics, insisting they get straight to the point. Kane wasted no time and set a firm price for the lair and the rare scimitar. The mysterious traitor found the offer amusing and attempted to drive the price higher. Greed took over as the traitor continued to raise the bid, hoping to squeeze more from the group. The offer climbed rapidly, but Kane remained unmoved by the escalating numbers. Losing patience, the masked man issued a cold ultimatum. He threatened to destroy everything if his terms weren't met. The traitor tried to play it off, but the threat of destruction left him shaken. High-purity magic stones were rare assets, and the discovery of such a rich deposit explained the traitor's hidden interest. Kane weighed the benefits of keeping the stones, but the grueling extraction process made selling them the more efficient choice. Panic set in as the traitor finally surrendered, desperate to avoid total bankruptcy. The masked man seized the moment to squeeze every last token from the broken merchant. Kane walked away with a substantial profit, leaving the merchant devastated by the loss of his wealth. The protagonist stopped abruptly, remembering one final detail to address. The hooded man trembled, fearing that Kane intended to strip him of everything he had left. A sudden shift in mood occurred as the merchant realized the request was actually a business opportunity. Kane pointed out the damage to his gear, seeking a replacement for his cracked mask. The merchant offered a special item, but the price was steep. He demanded a sacrifice of strength as payment. Kane refused to surrender his attributes. The hooded man grew impatient and threatened to void their entire agreement. The merchant's frustration boiled over. The tension reached a breaking point as the deal hung by a thread. A sigh of resignation followed. The merchant decided to provide a solution for the protagonist's damaged gear. The face of the white ghost was revealed. It was a powerful piece of headgear capable of hiding one's presence. Kane stood before the portal, the deal finally concluded. He felt a strange sensation as the new equipment bonded with him. The protagonist appreciated the item's durability and its ability to mend itself. Kane offered his gratitude, though the hooded merchant remained indifferent. A sudden thought occurred to the mysterious figure. The hooded merchant questioned the source of Kane's confidence during their deal. A suspicion lingered about what the young man knew of the other side. Kane sought clarification, but the merchant quickly retreated. The mysterious figure decided to keep the secret for now. Kane reflected on the value of high-grade magic stones. He realized the traitor had accepted an absurd price without hesitation. The protagonist analyzed the sudden surge in demand. Since the number of rankers remained the same, the logic didn't add up. A grim realization began to take shape. There was only one logical explanation for such a desperate need for resources. Kane reached a grim conclusion. The sudden demand for high-grade artifacts could only mean one thing. The protagonist realized that the competition between clans and rankers within the tower had turned vicious. Khan questioned the young man about his next move. The red-haired warrior pressed for an answer. Wondering if the collected tokens would lead the masked man to Block F, Cha Yan-woo checked his progress. Although his rank had climbed significantly, a daunting gap still remained between him and the top leaders. Khan held a secret advantage. He recalled a hidden target from the tutorial's most elusive section. The warrior decided that the moment to act had finally arrived. Khan informed the protagonist that he would not be heading to Block F immediately, as he had other priorities. Cha Yan-woo questioned the warrior's sudden change in plans. A companion joined the conversation, suggesting a new proposal for the group. The companion expressed his admiration for Cha Yan-woo. He believed their synergy was a perfect match. The young man hesitated for a moment before continuing his thought. A formal invitation was extended. The group wanted the protagonist to officially join their ranks. Cha Yan-woo was surprised by the offer. Khan clarified that the alliance could last well beyond the tutorial. The companion emphasized how their roles complemented one another. He hoped the protagonist would agree to the partnership. Cha Yan-woo rejected the offer. He could not allow himself to be tied down. The young man questioned the reason, but the protagonist remained firm. A personal mission took priority over any alliance. Despite the persistence of his companion, Cha Yan-woo made his stance clear. He had never sought social connections or teamwork. Khan accepted the decision with a calm maturity. He believed that everyone had their own burdens to carry. A final attempt was made to ensure they would at least depart the area together. Khan suggested it was time to return to their waiting allies. The terrain was treacherous, and the vastness of the swamp demanded absolute caution. A single wrong step could lead to a slow death, leaving a victim as prey for the lizardmen. The other survivors clung to Khan and Doyle, knowing that venturing alone meant certain doom. Kane questioned the necessity of bringing the weak along. Khan decided that the survivors had to accompany them until they escaped the swamp. Kane questioned the necessity of such kindness, but the red-haired warrior insisted on maintaining their humanity. While others viewed this compassion as a weakness in a brutal tutorial, the group remained divided on the matter. Despite the risks, the young man shared his food with the needy. To Kane, this generosity was merely an invitation for exploitation. The masked man remained cold and detached, planning to part ways with the group the moment they reached safety. A deceptive peace hung over the forest. Deep within the woods, a secret meeting took place. Eden received the requested items, pleased that the target had been so easily manipulated. The man mocked the target's naivety, viewing their sense of responsibility as a fatal flaw. A sinister plan was set in motion to steal valuable artifacts through a calculated distraction. Sir Eden analyzed the competition. To reach the top, he needed to eliminate the strongest players standing in his way. The man harbored a dark ambition. Removing those obstacles would finally make the first rank a reality. However, the masked man remained a source of unease. Sir Eden felt a strange tension whenever their paths crossed. A chilling aura emanated from the stranger. It felt as if the masked figure could peer directly into his soul. Meanwhile, the group's progress slowed. Some of the survivors began to complain to Khan about their exhaustion. The survivors reached their limit. Exhausted and desperate, they begged for a moment of respite. Khan felt no sympathy. To the warrior, their weakness was a liability in a world filled with monsters. The red-haired man considered a cold solution. He wondered if it was simpler to just abandon the burden. While Khan hesitated, a hidden predator saw an opening. The moment for a strike had arrived. A deceptive smile masked the danger. A man approached the group, offering a sanctuary that felt far too convenient. The scavenger leader played his part perfectly, offering a welcoming sanctuary to the exhausted group. Behind the facade of kindness, a lethal ambush awaited. The scavengers had already surrounded the area, with Khan marked as the primary target. The manipulator felt a surge of greed. He anticipated the massive reward that would come from such a successful hunt. However, a sudden shift in the atmosphere caught the man's attention. The masked man stood there, his silent presence radiating an oppressive and unsettling energy. The masked man sensed something unexpected. A sudden realization crossed his mind. Khan and his companions reacted with shock. The atmosphere shifted in an instant. Confusion gripped the survivors as they looked upon the scene. A life had been extinguished without warning. The intruder made his intentions clear. He sought to eliminate everyone tied to the fallen man. Panic erupted among the remaining traitors. They wondered how their secrets had been exposed so easily. The masked man struck with lethal precision. His heightened senses had already exposed the traitor's plans. Every suspicious glance and avoided eye contact had been noted. The deception was transparent to him. He decided to act before the enemy could execute their ambush. A preemptive strike was the only solution. The sudden attack left the red-haired man completely bewildered. He could not comprehend the sudden shift in aggression. The masked man questioned the other's naivety. The truth was obvious to everyone except those blinded by innocence. The masked man showed no mercy. He warned the confused witness to remain silent and stay out of the way. Khan felt a surge of panic. The sudden shift in the atmosphere left the red-haired warrior completely shaken. The situation spiraled into chaos. Khan struggled to process how the encounter had turned into a bloodbath. A ruthless purge began. The masked man carved through the crowd, leaving a trail of fallen bodies in his wake. One of the survivors pleaded for answers. The attacker simply mocked the man's ignorance, revealing that they had been nothing more than pawns. The masked man struck with lethal precision. He mocked the victim, revealing that they were nothing more than disposable bait. Khan watched in horror. The realization hit him that even ordinary players were being slaughtered without hesitation. A cold sweat broke across the warrior's brow. He struggled to comprehend the identity of these ruthless killers. These were the scavengers. Far from being mere bandits, they were the sadistic architects of a human farm. Their methods were vile. By feigning injury to lure in the helpful, the group kidnapped unsuspecting players for a darker purpose. The scavengers operated with chilling efficiency. They stripped their victims of everything, treating human lives as mere livestock for the monsters. This place was a death trap. For most players who stumbled into the human farm, there was no escape. Greed drove the hunters. The prospect of capturing high-profile targets promised a massive payday. The group targeted the strongest teams. Breaking them down and stealing their gear was seen as a game. Gibson already claimed the most prized weapon. The anticipation of the kill turned into a petty squabble over the loot. Noin laughed off the tension. To him, the rules of the group were simple and driven by greed. Zwei tried to restore order. The young man demanded focus, reminding them of the prize they had won from the Lizard King. A sudden realization struck Zwei. The silence from his companion felt wrong, prompting him to send an urgent message. He activated the device, desperate for a response. Confusion spread through the woods. The others called out, realizing that Gibson had vanished without a trace. Zwei searched for his companion, but only a blood-stained hand and a dropped item remained. The young leader recalled their recent bickering over the loot. The sudden silence was deafening. A chilling realization dawned on Zwei. Something was terribly wrong. Panic surged through the man as he sensed a hidden threat lurking in the shadows. Despite his high rank and confidence in his skills, Zwei felt a sudden, overwhelming sense of vulnerability. Zwei struggled to understand how such a lethal threat had bypassed his senses. The warrior felt a sudden chill as a presence manifested behind him. A dying comrade stood before the young man, barely clinging to life. With his final breath, the fallen soldier warned Zwei about the supernatural horror hunting them. The masked stranger struck with blinding speed, claiming another victim before Zwei could react. A sudden presence loomed behind the young man. He froze in sheer terror. Death arrived in a flash of darkness. The survivors stood in shock. They could hardly believe the carnage unfolding around them. Confusion turned into desperation. The red-haired warrior wondered why those meant to maintain order had vanished. Before he could find an answer, the predator struck again. The masked stranger showed no mercy to the fallen. He stepped over the body with cold indifference. The red-haired warrior called out in desperation. He could not believe the monster standing before him. Panic erupted as the slaughter continued. The survivors pleaded for help, but there was no one left to save them. A sinister smile played on the intruder's lips. He enjoyed the absolute terror he had instilled in his prey. The attack was instantaneous and lethal. Another life was extinguished before the victim could even scream. Desperate pleas for mercy echoed through the air. The attackers had completely broken. The scavengers fell much faster than anyone had anticipated. The survivors begged for forgiveness, claiming they were merely following orders to stay alive. The red-haired warrior remained unmoved. He questioned if they were any different from the monsters they served. Cold fury took over. The young man demanded to know how they could justify such atrocities. The red-haired warrior condemned the traitors for their cruelty. He reminded them of the blood they had spilled for their own gain. The young man had carved his own path to power, distancing himself from his father's legacy to earn a fearsome reputation. Hope vanished as the victim realized that mercy was a luxury he would never be granted. The masked stranger watched the scene from a distance, observing the aftermath of the slaughter. The observer reflected on the irony of the situation. The wrong people had been saved, while the innocent had already perished. The masked stranger reflected on his own past. Such brutality was a common occurrence in Africa, and he had long since grown numb to it. The intruder knew the survivors would be torn apart by their own emotions. Some would question humanity, while others would burn with rage. The mysterious man felt no need to intervene. He decided to wait and see how the others would process the horror. The red-haired warrior could not comprehend such indifference. He questioned how the stranger remained so composed after the slaughter. Overwhelmed by a sense of dread, the warrior wondered what kind of hellish life the man had endured to become so cold. The masked stranger remained detached, reflecting on a world where such chaos was the only norm. The red-haired warrior succumbed to a wave of disbelief and frustration. A heavy silence fell between them as the young man sought a moment of raw honesty. The warrior expressed his disdain for those who played the victim after their betrayal. Despite the bravado, the survivor admitted that the masked stranger inspired a deep, lingering fear. The red-haired warrior noted the masked stranger's unsettling composure. It was clear the man had anticipated the betrayal from the start. A deeper suspicion surfaced. The warrior wondered if the mysterious man had ever truly trusted anyone at all. The realization hit hard. If the stranger viewed everyone as a threat, then he had never trusted his own allies either. Yet, the masked stranger felt a flicker of conflict. He hadn't viewed everyone as a complete enemy. Memories of Khan and Doyle surfaced. Their genuine bond and warmth had been the only things that felt sincere. The masked stranger decided it was time to end their association. Since harmony was impossible, parting ways became the only logical choice. The news left the young man in shock. He couldn't believe the group was simply breaking apart. The red-haired warrior stepped in, attempting to stop the separation. He commanded the youth to stay put. Desperate, the young man pleaded for reconsideration. He reminded the warrior of the kindness Cain had shown them. The red-haired warrior remained unmoved. His tone grew cold as he repeated his order. The red-haired warrior maintained a cold composure. He believed the decision was final. Heiling felt a surge of confusion. The young man struggled to understand the situation. The warrior questioned the youth's awareness. He wanted to know if the truth was obvious. A tense silence fell between them. Heiling remained stunned by the revelation. The warrior revealed a hidden detail. This small token linked them to the infamous Orang group. The red-haired warrior found the situation suspicious. He couldn't understand why a guild obsessed with order would involve itself in such chaos. The Azure Sword Guild held immense power as one of the top 10 in the tower. Their prestige meant they rarely bothered with newcomers. Fear kept everyone silent. No one dared to challenge the guild's hidden motives, but the warrior suspected a darker purpose. Heiling recalled the official reason for the Orang group's creation. It was supposed to be a cleanup operation during the tutorial. The warrior didn't buy the lie. He believed the true goal was simply to find a more efficient way to control the scavengers. The red-haired warrior wanted to shield Cain from the unfolding chaos. He believed the young man had more important matters to attend to. Heiling felt the weight of the decision. He didn't want to hinder Cain's progress. The warrior admitted his own selfish desire to settle a score with a particular enemy. He urged the other to prioritize finding the legendary weapon. Big Ride was a hidden treasure of immense power. Obtaining it required a specific key, and its possession could shift the balance of power against their rivals. Hyling questioned the logic behind the plan. He couldn't understand why his companion was acting so strangely. The red-haired warrior felt a surge of anticipation. He wanted to witness the shock on his enemies' faces. Hyling couldn't help but criticize the man's erratic behavior. The warrior's contradictions were becoming impossible to ignore. A sudden shift in the atmosphere occurred. The warrior began to move with purpose. He came to a sudden halt, his focus shifting toward a new objective. Kane looked upon the situation with utter contempt. The masked man knew he had to move east immediately. Any delay would mean failing his ultimate goal. A flicker of doubt crossed the protagonist's mind. He wondered if he could have abandoned his former allies had they begged for mercy. He closed his eyes, pushing those fleeting emotions aside. With a sudden burst of speed, the young man vanished into the forest. Shock filled the room as the news arrived. Squad 2 had been wiped out, and the culprits were already known. The commander felt a surge of irritation. He had trusted those men, only to lose Hargan for nothing. A cold decision was made. It was time to stop hesitating and deploy a stronger force. The subordinate trembled at the command. The gravity of the situation was finally sinking in. Squad 1 was not a typical unit. They were the elite of Orang, forged by the legendary Azure Sword Guild. The subordinate was stunned. He couldn't believe such a powerful squad was being deployed for only 3 targets. The report was grim. Bloodsword, Foxy Tail, and the masked man had decimated the second squad with ease. The commander decided to take action himself. His sudden resolve left the young man speechless. This interference came at the worst possible time. The collection of sacrifices was almost complete. A cautious plan was necessary. The enemies were backed by powerful organizations, and they had to be eliminated quietly. The disappearance of Ardia had shattered the fragile peace. With alliances crumbling, the tower stood on the brink of a devastating war. Secrecy was the only shield left. Every move had to be calculated to avoid triggering a premature conflict. The sudden chaos broke the silence. Panic surged as the alarm of an enemy assault echoed through the halls. Confusion turned to terror. The soldiers recognized the names of the intruders, and the weight of their reputation brought immediate dread. A violent impact tore through the defenses. The attack was swift, leaving the defenders completely blindsided. The silence of the aftermath was heavy. Only the sound of shifting debris remained. The red-haired warrior emerged from the dust. He stood as a blood-stained testament to the slaughter. A surge of raw power erupted. The young man unleashed a command that shook the very air. The shockwave was instantaneous. The remaining enemies were blown back by the sheer force of the impact. A new challenger appeared. The intruder found the situation amusing and welcomed the confrontation. The intruder mocked the red-haired warrior, treating the lethal encounter as a mere game. Steel clashed violently as the two fighters locked blades in a fierce struggle. Far away, the orcs maintained their hold over the desolate brown plains. A group of guards stood watch, unaware of the danger lurking in the shadows. The masked man struck with blinding speed, executing the first sentry before he could react. The creature was caught completely off guard by the sudden assault. The masked man seized the monster by the throat, asserting total dominance. Terrified and breathless, the beast begged for mercy while the intruder demanded information about a hidden residence. Desperate to survive, the creature admitted that others had spotted the house atop a mountain. The masked man had finally found the lead he was searching for. The masked man tightened his grip, demanding the location of his target. There was no room for lies.